Hello everyone, welcome back to Code with Beto. It's been a while. I'm super excited to be here back again. And in today's video, we are going to learn how to integrate sign in with Google into your React Native application using Expo. So let's see what we're gonna be doing here. As you can see, here I have a demo of this application, and this is going to work for web, iOS, and Android. We're going to learn the three of them. And let's start by checking if this is working. So I have the information of the users saved locally, but I just removed it. And if I now try to sign in with Google, you're going to see that it's working on Android. And now let's do the same on iOS. Yes, it's working. Let me just select my account. And lastly, in web, and as you can see, it was super quick because I already had my account there. I already signed in before. And yeah, this is pretty much what we're gonna be doing, guys. Super simple UI, don't worry about that. The functionality is going to be just to add the functionality of signing in with Google, right? Now let's start. As always, guys, if you want to download the resources for this project, you can go to codewithbeto.dev, and if you click here and projects, you're going to find all the projects that we create in this YouTube channel. You can click just whatever you want. Even we have this Facebook login as well. If you want to integrate Google and Facebook, you can find this video in this channel as well. You're gonna find the code down here if you are interested. And as well, I invite you to check the React Native course. It's been translated to English, so the first two sections are available now. You can see that you have this button of English and you can enjoy these lessons in English, right? Okay, and that being said, now that you know that, let's take this out of the way and start creating this application. Okay guys, so the first thing that we need to do is just open our terminal and create a new Expo project. So here in my desktop, I'm going to say npx create expo app, and the name for this application is going to be tutorial Google, for example, and hit enter. And let's wait a little bit until this is done. And the project is ready, guys, so we can access the new folder called tutorial Google. Now that we are in this project, we can open it on Visual Studio Code by running the shortcut .code. And here we have our new project, guys. So the first thing that I want to do is actually start by installing the dependencies that we're going to be using. We're going to be using expo-auth-session to manage the signing with Google. So we're going to need to install expo-auth-session and expo crypto because it's a paired dependency of this library, and as well expo web browser. We're going to use expo web browser to have a actually browser inside the application so we can sign in using Google without leaving the application, right? And as well, we're going to need React Native Web because we want to show that this is going to work as well on web. So we are going to need to install React Native Web. Because we are using React Native Web, we are going to need as well React DOM, and we are going to need as well Expo Webpack config, okay? Expo uses Webpack to build the web application, so we need to install it as well. And finally, guys, we're going to need React Native async storage, and this is optional. I'm going to be using async storage to save the information of the user once they sign in, so we don't have to sign in every time we reload the application, right? Now, these are the dependencies that we're going to use. If you don't want to copy them manually, you can go to codewithbeto.dev, and in this project, you're gonna find these dependencies, so you can go there and just copy them. Now I'm going to hit enter. Let's wait a little bit until this is done so we can continue. Okay guys, so the dependencies are installed, and now we can actually start creating our project in the Google Cloud. If you don't have an account in the Google Cloud, I'm going to bring here my browser so you can see what I mean. So you're gonna need a project here in Google Cloud. If you don't have an account, you can just go to Google Cloud and create one. And here, as you can see, I have these two projects. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project just to show you how you can do it if you don't have one. I'm going to name this project tutorial, and for the organization, I'm just gonna leave it like that, right? Now let's hit create, and this is going to start creating a new project in the Google Cloud. So we need to do some things before we can actually start integrating the code in our application. So the project is ready, as you can see here, and I'm going to click on select project. And now, as you can see here in this select, we have the tutorial that we are using. Now, we are going to need to create an OAuth client ID for our applications. In this case, we are going to have three, one for web, one for iOS, and one for Android. So let's go here to the navigation, select APIs and services, and hit enable API and services. Actually, clicked on let's go back to enable APIs, and here you can click on credentials. Once you are here on credentials, you can click on create credential up here, and we are going to need a OAuth client ID. So let's create one. And yeah, like I'm gonna say before, we need to configure a consent screen. What is a consent screen? A consent screen is basically the screen that the user is going to see when he's trying to sign in with their Google account into your application. So we need to provide some information about our consent screen here. And for this case, you can select, for example, the user type. In this case, you can select internal, only available to users within your organization, or external, which is available to any test user with a Google account. So I'm gonna hit external, hit create. And as you can see here, let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see a little more. This is basically the consent screen. It's the screen where our name, well, the application name shows, as well as some information about the developer and what information we are getting from the user, right? And here they select allow or cancel. So the app name is going to be Google tutorial in my case, tutorial like this. And email support, we need to provide one. It's going to be codewithbeto.dev@gmail.com. You can specify a logo for your application, app domain, and all this is optional, I believe. Yeah, so let's scroll down. Let's close this. And here we're going to need to add another email. So I'm gonna say outlook.com like this. You need to provide a developer contact information, save and continue. And we have an error here. It seems that error saving your app. Down here, we need to provide a developer contact information. So I'm going to say Beto, actually code with beto.dev@gmail.com and hit save and continue. Okay, now we need to provide some scopes here. So I don't think we need to do anything crazy here, just save and continue. We can add test users if you want. I'm gonna save and continue and just check that everything is okay here, and you can hit back to dashboard, or we can go now to the credentials section here and create a new credential, select OAuth client ID. Now we're going to be able to get into this screen because we already have a consent screen. And here we can select the type of application that we are going to be creating. Let's start with the easiest. I think it's going to be web application, which is going to be for the web, obviously. Now down here, we need to provide some URLs. And this is going to be the URL for our application. So in order to get this link, we need to run this project on web so we can see the link, right? So I'm going to clear my terminal here. So I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to run the following command, which is going to be npx expo start web. And one important thing here is that we need to pass the flag HTTPS. Hit enter. And I'm going to use this port instead because I don't know why I'm using the other one. And now we can press W to open on web. So I'm going to press W. and this is going to open a window. Let me bring the window here. I'm gonna put it here. And as you can see, we have just the basic configuration. If I go to my app.js, and if I change this text, for example, I'm gonna say code with Beto, hit save, and it's reloading. So this means that this is working, and I can make this super bigger so we can see what's going on. Okay, guys, so now we can see that this is going to be our link. So I'm gonna say localhost 19006, and this is the same link for the authorized redirects. So let's add it here. And now that this is done, let's hit create. Of course, if you have this application deployed, you need to provide your domain and the link for your web application, right? Okay, and here we have the first thing that we're going to need, which is the client ID. So I'm gonna copy the client ID here. Make sure that you don't share this information, of course. And yeah, we can come to the app and just paste here, let's say web, and paste it, right? We're gonna be using it in a moment. Actually, let's just start by doing this, but I'm going to stop my server and let's actually get the IDs for iOS and Android as well. So in order to get the identifiers for iOS and Android, I'm going to close this one by pressing OK. We need to create more credentials, right? So let's hit another OAuth client ID. This time it's going to be for iOS. And for iOS, we're going to need the bundle ID. So the bundle ID, we can generate it if you don't have it already in your app.json. This is it because this is a new app here in my app.json. You can see that in iOS and Android, I don't have a package and I don't have a bundle identifier. So we can run the command npx expo prebuild. And what this is going to do is basically just prepare this project to be ready for production. So let's just give the defaults. In this case, it's going to be the package name for Android, which is going to become betomoedano.tutorial Google. Hit enter. And here we have the iOS identifier, which is going to be the same. Hit enter, and we're going to have these fields here. It's basically what we are doing here. And as well, we are creating the folders for the projects on Android and iOS. Okay, so it's installing CocoaPod for iOS. And while this is done, we can close this Explorer and just copy this bundle identifier and go back to Google and paste it here. This is going to be the bundle identifier for my application. Now we can scroll down and hit create. This is going to give us the client ID for iOS. Let's copy this and go back to the app.js and paste it here. So I'm gonna say iOS equal to the following. Now we need Android, and let's go back to get the Android one. So hit OK, create a new credential, OAuth client ID, select in this case Android, and the package name is going to be, it's going to be the same that we have for iOS. You can check it out here for Android. So I'm gonna copy this and go back to my Google Cloud platform and paste it. Got it. Now we're gonna need a SHA-1 certificate fingerprint. And in order to get this from Expo, we need to run, okay guys, so in order to get the SHA certificate for Android, we need to run the following command, which is going to be npx expo credentials manager. Hit enter, and this is going to be without the npx, I believe. I'm gonna run it like this, and this is going to ask us for which platform. So I'm gonna select Android and hit yes. Okay, and here I believe I need to select update and generate new key store, I believe. Let's wait a little bit. This is going to generate a new credential. And let's go back to the experience overview. Okay, now here we have the SHA-1 for Android. So we can copy this. And now we can just press Ctrl-C here just to get out. I copy the SHA and I'm going back here and I'm going to paste it. Okay. So let's close this now, hit create. This is going to create the client ID for Android. Copy it and go back to app.js. I'm going to close my terminal and here I'm going to paste this ID. Okay. This is the most difficult part, I believe, getting these IDs for the application that we're doing. But now that you have this, we can actually start creating the code for this application, or we can actually start by implementing this application. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to import here is going to be web browser. And this is the web browser that I mentioned before. That is going to be a browser inside the application, so we don't have to leave the application to sign in. This is just going to work for Android, for iOS, I believe. And we can initialize this listener by saying maybe complete auth-session and close like this. Now we can start actually as well importing all as Google, and we're going to import this from expo-auth-session, and we can select providers, and we have two providers here. I'm going to select Google. Okay, I'm going to save the information of the users when they sign in, so we don't have to sign in every time. And for that, I'm going to use async storage. We installed this dependency at the beginning. And I believe this is all we need for this application. I'm just going to import as well here all as React from React, so we can use some state to save the information of the user. And let's start by creating one variable that is going to be called user info and set user info using React use state. Cool. So let's initialize this to be null. So if it is null, we know that we don't have a user, right? Sign it in. Okay, guys. So now inside this application, we can actually start using a hook that comes with this provider Google that is going to allow us to sign in with all in all of our applications using the application's ID. So this hook, it's going to return us three things. I'm gonna say google.useAuth request, and this useAuth request is going to take some things here, and the things it's going to be the client ID for each application. So we can just copy this information that we already have up here. And actually I'm going to copy these three and paste it here. And now we can actually start removing the comments. Of course, we need to add this with string like this. So we're going to have Android, we're going to have iOS client ID, and this is going to look something like this. And finally, web client ID. The web client ID, it's going to be this one. So let me cut it and paste it here. Cool. Now hit save. And basically, this is all the information we need. This is how this hook is going to know which application they have to load when they open the web browser to sign in. And now this is going to return the request, the response, and as well a function that is going to trigger the web browser, right? So it's going to be called prompt async. Okay, hit save. Now that we have these three things, we can actually prompt the user to sign in with Google by creating a button here. So I'm gonna say button, and the title is going to be sign in with Google. When they press this sign in with Google, we want to prompt. So we're going to call this function prompt async. So if I hit save now and reload here, of course I need to run this again. So of course I need to run this again. I'm going to run npx expo start web https, and yes, reload in this side, and as you can see, we have this button sign in with Google. Now let's see if this is working. Sign in with Google. Let's press it and we get this modal here. And yeah, it's working. And yeah, it's working, as you can see, guys. But we are not handling anything. even though if I hit in this account, we are not handling the request ni the response, right? So let's close the terminal and go back to the application and actually handle this this request and response. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is just create an async function that is going to basically handle the sign in. So I'm going to call this function handle sign in with Google, for example. You can name it as you want. And this function, it's going to basically check if we already have a user locally. Remember that we are going to be using async storage. So I'm going to say await async storage dot get item, and this item, it's going to have the key user. Of course, it doesn't exist yet. We are going to create it later. But in the case that somehow this user exists, I'm going to say user equal to. In the case that this user exists, we don't want to sign in the user, or we don't want to make the request to the API of Google to get the information of the user because we already have the information, right? So I'm just simply gonna say if there is no user, we want to make the request to Google. Otherwise, else, we want to use the information that we have saved locally in the device. So we can set the user info, set user info equal to this user. So we can set the user info by saying json.parse, and we're going to parse the user. And the reason we are saying parse, it's because this user is going to be an object, and we are basically transforming it into a JavaScript object, right? Cool. So now the logic, the important logic here is going to be whenever there's no user. In that case, we want to make a request. In this case, we want to make a request. So I'm going to copy this function that I have here. Basically, let me just delete this token. Well, let's just leave it like that. We're going to pass the token as a parameter. If we don't have a token, we're going to return. Otherwise, we're going to continue and try to make a fetch request to the Google API endpoint, user info version 2 /me, and we're going to pass the token. Cool. So if this is correct, the token is correct, we're going to get back the response, which is going to contain the information of the user. So we're grabbing the user here, and we're going to save the user locally. So next time we reload the application, we already have the information inside the user key, right? So we're gonna say stringify user and update the user state hook by saying set user info equal to user. Cool. So now inside this handle sign in with Google, if there is no user locally, we want to get the user info, and this is an asynchronous function, so we can say await for the response here. But if you remember, this get user info is going to take the token, so we need to abstract the token from the response. So if you remember, we have this response here that we can use from the hook, use auth request, and this response is going to contain a type. So I'm gonna say type. We can check, double check here. If the type is success, it means that everything went well. In that case, we want to get the user info, and we can pass the token here by saying response dot authentication dot token dot access token. Okay, so with this token, we are gonna go and hit this endpoint and get the user info. Cool. Now let's hit save, and now we need to run this function whenever this prompt async is triggered. So in order to do that, I'm going to create a use effect. So I'm gonna say react.useEffect. UseEffect is going to take two parameters. The first one is going to be this function, and the second one is going to be an array of dependencies. Inside this array of dependencies, we want to add a trigger to run the functionality that we are going to have inside this function. So inside this function, we want to handle the sign in with Google, and the trigger for this is going to be the response. So whenever the response changes, that means that the user has signed in with Google, and or at least has tried to sign in with Google. So we want to run this function. And this response is going to trigger the use effect, and this use effect is going to try to get the user info if the response type is success. If it is success, we want to get the user info, save it locally, and update the state. Got it? Now let's hit save, and just to make sure that this is working, we can come down here and just say json.stringify, and we want to stringify the user info. This is going to basically put the information inside a string, and I'm going to put it here. Hit save, and well, as you can see here, we have some information, but I'm going to create that information is because the demo that I showed you, but I'm going to create another button that is going to be called delete local storage, delete local storage. And whenever we press this button, we want to say async storage dot, we can say delete, I believe. Sorry, we can say remove item, and the item that we want to remove is going to be user. So let's hit save, let's hit delete local storage, try to reload. Okay, and we have null. That means that we don't have a user. Cool, so it seems that this is working. Let's try to reload again. Okay, so let's try to reload again and try to sign in with Google. As you can see, we have this screen. I don't know if you can see it well, but yeah, I'm going to select my my account, and once this is done, you can see that we have all the information of the user back into the application. Of course, it's looking ugly, but what we can do here is just to come here into this stringify object and say null and give it a space of 2. And now it's going to look a little less ugly. We can make this smaller so we can see everything. And yeah, so this is working just like that on web. Now let's see if this is working on iOS and Android. I'm going to stop this, and I'm going to close now this window because we already know that it's working. So I'm going to clear this terminal, and in order to test these guys, we need to provide a scheme. This scheme is going to help us to redirect the user back to the application once they sign in. Okay, so before we do this, guys, on iOS and Android, we need to add a scheme for our application. This scheme is going to look something like this. In this case, it's going to be my Google app, but you can name it as you want. For example, you can just paste the slug for your application, or I'm just gonna say beto, just to prove that you can write anything in the scheme. Yeah, so this is going to be like the thing that is going to allow us to redirect back to the application once the user signs in. Okay, so let's hit save, and we are going to need to build the application in order to test this. Okay, so for iOS, we're going to need to run the command npx expo run iOS. This is going to take a little bit, and this is not going to work if you are using Expo Go. You need to make the build by running this command in order to test this. Okay, so let's wait until this is done and try to see if this is working. Okay, I think this is done, almost done. As you can see, it's opening my iPhone 14 Pro, and I get this alert that you know, that Expo wants to open tutorial Google. So I'm gonna say open, and this is loading. So let's wait a little bit until this is done, and there we go. We have null because we don't have any user yet, and we have these buttons. And if I get out of this application, you can see that this is another one. This is tutorial Google, which is the one that we are working on. So now let's see if this is working by pressing sign in. Okay, and let's try it again. Okay, something is wrong here. I don't know why this is not working. And as you can see, I'm getting this weird bug. I don't know if that has something to do with this prompt async. I believe if we do it like this, maybe the error goes away. I'm gonna try that again. Hit sign in with Google. Yeah, so that was the error. Make sure that you write this handler like this. And now let's hit continue. And it's actually working. So guys, make sure that you write this function like this. Now let's press this account. Let's see if we get reload back. Yes, so it's working. We are getting the information of the user just like that. And now we need to see if this is working on Android. To do that, we're going to need to create the actual build for Android. So it's going to be pretty much the same command, npx expo run, but in this case, it's going to be Android. Hit enter, and this is going to build the application. So let me just drag my Android device here. And I'm going to put it here, maybe. And as you can see, guys, it's loading. It's loading the new application, and let's wait. Okay, we don't have anything. Let's sign in with Google. We are redirect. Let's wait a little bit. And there we go. As you can see, here we have tutorial test. It's the name of the application that we provide on the Google Cloud. And if I press on betomoedano at gmail.com, we should be redirect back to the application, but I believe my memory is full. So what I'm going to do is just delete an application here. So I'm going to delete this one. I don't know why I'm running out of memory all the time in this device. Let's try to go back again. Sign in with Google. Let's see. Let's wait. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's try to reload this application again. Press A here. This is going to open again the application. Sign in with Google. Let's wait a little bit. Hopefully it's going to work this time. Sometimes you just have to reload everything, as you know. And for some reason, this is not redirecting back to the application. What I'm going to do here is just try to make the build again, but I'm going to delete the application. Sometimes these weird bugs happen. Don't worry, guys. We are going to fix it. Okay, now let's run this again. Let's see if this works. And while this is working or building, we can actually add some styles to this screen. So I'm going to copy some styles from my application here and paste it here. We're going to remove this. Oops. Okay, I'm going to remove this. Turn. Yep, so hit save, sign in with Google. Let's see if this works. I don't know why it's making that sound. It's making a sound. I believe something's wrong with this device. Okay, guys, so I was trying to discover why is not working on Android, and I just leave my simulator like that for like a minute or two, and then I press on sign in, and this is going to take me back to the application, I believe. So I think it has to do with my simulator. It's a bit low, and as you can see, yeah, it's working now. I didn't do any changes. I just tried to delete the Android folder. Then I changed the scheme as well. then rebuild the application, and it's still the same issue. But if I wait a little bit, so for example, if I remove here the local storage and reload the application, try to sign in with Google, and if I press right away here, it's not going to do anything. But if I leave it like that for a minute or two, I don't know if it's my emulator or it's my computer, I don't know. If I leave it like that, it's going to work in a minute or two, in a minute or two. So let's just wait just to see if if this works, just for science. Yeah, and now it let me clicked, and it's loading, it's redirecting me back to the application. Let's wait a little bit, let's see if it doesn't break. Yeah, and it's working. So I believe it's my emulator, but yeah, hopefully it's working right for you. And yeah, this is basically what I wanted to show you guys. I hope you liked this video, I hope you learned something new. Please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave me a comment down below. If you have any questions, any suggestions, down below, it's a place to do it. And don't forget to go to codebeto.dev and check the React Native course. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.